Moments before facing death, a samurai warrior would kneel in absolute silence, burn fragrant incense in his helmet, and write his final farewell poem. It wasn't superstition. It wasn't fear. It was the most important preparation of his entire life, the secret ritual that transformed an ordinary man into an immortal legend. Today you will discover exactly what happened in those final minutes before battle, the ancestral gestures that separated the samurai from all other warriors in the world. And what you are about to learn will completely change your view of courage, death, and honor. The morning before a major battle in feudal Japan began long before dawn. The samurai would awaken while it was still darkness, and his first act was not to draw his sword or check his armor. It was something far more profound. He would begin the ritual of misogi, the complete purification of body and soul through immersion in the icy water of a nearby river or waterfall, even in the harsh winter, while reciting Shinto mantras. The cold water was not merely for cleansing the physical body. The samurai believed that every spiritual impurity accumulated during life needed to be washed away before potentially dying in combat. A naked warrior, in the dead of night, under temperatures that could freeze his breath, repeatedly submerging in turbulent waters. Many trembled uncontrollably, but none could show weakness. After the aquatic purification, the samurai would return and perform something even more intimate and revealing. He would write his jisei, the death poem. It was not a legal testament or an ordinary letter. It was a poetic composition of exactly 17 syllables, following the structure of the haiku, where the warrior expressed his acceptance of mortality and his perspective on existence. A historical example is the poem by Ota Doken, a famous 15th century samurai, who wrote verses about falling cherry blossoms, using the metaphor of the flower that blooms briefly and then disappears to represent human life. These poems were left in specific locations so that should the samurai die, his family could find and preserve his last words. The psychological pressure of writing one's own poetic epitaph before a battle was immense. Each word needed to capture the essence of an entire life, demonstrating wisdom, courage, and serene acceptance of fate. After completing the jisei, the samurai prepared and consumed what might be his last meal. Following strict traditions, he ate pure white rice, dried fish, and miso soup. The white rice represented purity, the dried fish symbolized preservation and continuity, and the hot soup signified comfort and connection to home. On some special occasions, especially before decisive battles, the samurai commander would organize a formal collective tea ceremony. It may seem absurd to modern Western minds, but it had a profound purpose. The tea ceremony, known as chanoyu, was a moving meditation exercise. Each precise gesture in preparing the matcha tea served to calm the mind and achieve the ideal mental state called mushin, meaning mindless mind. It was a state of consciousness where rational thought ceased and only pure intuition remained. This mental state was considered essential for effective combat. A samurai who went into battle overthinking, overcalculating, hesitating was doomed. Historical records from the 16th century document that before the famous Battle of Sekigahara in 1600, several samurai commanders held elaborate tea ceremonies the night before, knowing that some 200,000 warriors would clash the following day and that tens of thousands would die. And you? Could you remain calm and perform a tea ritual knowing that in a few hours you could be dead on a battlefield? Leave your opinion in the comments. Following the ceremony came one of the most practical yet equally symbolic moments. The samurai would don his armor with the help of assistants or alone. Each component of the armor was meticulously checked. The silk cords that held the metal plates together were inspected one by one. Samurai armor, called yoroi, was a functional work of art consisting of hundreds of small metal or lacquered leather plates tied together with colored cords in intricate patterns. Putting on a complete suit of armor could take over an hour. During this process, the samurai would often converse in hushed tones with his assistants about memories, family, and philosophy. It was a subtle way of saying goodbye without using the word goodbye. Some samurai requested that, should they die, specific objects be given to loved ones. After fully dressed, the samurai performed a final unsettling gesture. He would burn special incense inside his helmet. Small pieces of aromatic wood were lit, and the fragrant smoke was directed into the kabuto. If a samurai died in battle, his head would often be removed as a trophy. Perfuming the helmet ensured that, even in death, even decapitated, the warrior would maintain dignity through the pleasant aroma. It was a final consideration of elegance and self-respect. But the most intense and psychologically heavy ritual was yet to come. Before going into battle, the samurai practiced zazen, the seated meditation of Zen Buddhism. He sat in a full lotus position, back perfectly straight, and meditated on his own death. It wasn't a meditation to avoid thinking about death. It was exactly the opposite. It was to confront death directly, to visualize his own death in vivid detail, and to fully accept this possibility. This exercise had a specific name, Shi-Okan, contemplation of death. The samurai visualized detailed scenarios of how he could die. An arrow piercing his neck, a spear piercing his abdomen, a katana cutting his arm. He imagined the pain, the blood, his consciousness fading. All this deliberately, methodically. The philosophy behind it was revolutionary. Zen masters taught that the greatest obstacle in battle was attachment to life, the instinctive fear of dying. This fear caused hesitation, caused mistakes, caused death. Paradoxically, only by fully accepting death, only by mentally dying before battle, could a samurai fight with maximum effectiveness. A samurai who had already died in his mind was unbeatable because he had nothing to lose, nothing to fear. Documents from the Sengoku period describe samurai meditating for hours before important battles, some reporting entering altered states of consciousness where they perceived reality differently. Colors more vividly, sounds clearer, time seeming slower. Many samurai carried a small protective amulet called an omamori, blessed in Shinto or Buddhist temples. Before battle, they held this amulet, sometimes pressing it against their forehead, and recited specific prayers. These were not prayers asking for survival. They were prayers asking to die well, to die with honor, not to show cowardice. Honorable death, called Meiyo no Shi, was infinitely more important than dishonorable survival. A samurai who fled from battle carried shame upon his entire family lineage for generations. On the other hand, a samurai who died bravely guaranteed eternal honor for his family. The fear was not of dying, the fear was of dying cowardly. That is why the rituals were so elaborate. They prepared the warrior not for victory, but for a dignified death. The final moments before departing for the battlefield involved weapon checks. The katana was removed from its sheath and meticulously inspected. Any imperfections on the blade were polished. The edge was gently tested with the fingertip. The sheath was checked to ensure the sword could be drawn with maximum speed. Samurai frequently practiced the drawing motion, called iaijutsu, repeating the gesture dozens of times until achieving perfect fluidity. This was not merely physical training, it was meditation in motion, another way to calm the mind and enter the mushin state. Along with the katana, the samurai checked the wakizashi, a short sword used in close combat and also for seppuku if necessary, and the tanto, a small but lethal dagger. Each weapon was treated with almost religious reverence. For the samurai, their weapons were not just tools, they were extensions of their soul, physical manifestations of their warrior spirit. There are records of samurai who died trying to retrieve their swords that had fallen in combat, preferring death to the shame of losing their katana. A final and surprising aspect of the ritual involved music. Some samurai played traditional Japanese instruments before going to war. The most common was the shakuhachi, a bamboo flute with a deep, melancholic sound. Playing the shakuhachi was considered a form of sonic meditation. The samurai improvised slow, contemplative melodies, using the controlled breathing required to play the instrument as an exercise in mental focus. Music served as a bridge between the everyday world and the world of battle, allowing the samurai to express emotions they could not directly verbalize, because openly displaying fear or sadness was unacceptable. Through music, these emotions could be channeled and transformed into resolution. If you enjoyed discovering these secret rituals that samurai performed before facing death, leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more fascinating facts about samurai culture.